Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. I started this past reading week finishing off Dynasty by Tom Holland. This is a history of the Julio-Claudian dynasty from Julius Caesar through Nero. I talked a bit about this book last Friday. And it ended on a high note. Holland has a muscular purple style that can be, I think, at first off-putting, but the more a reader gets into the book, becomes more accustomed to Holland's style, the more attractive, the more compelling the style is. So in the end, I really enjoyed Dynasty despite an incredibly rough start. After I finished Dynasty, I started on Empire's Crossroads, A New History of the Caribbean by Carrie Gibson. This is a history of the Caribbean from 1492 to the present, and I ended up bailing on this book. It got tiresome. I wasn't into it, and there's so many times one can take being told that sugar has no dietary value to be quite tired of it. So I'll come back to this. I'll try to come back to this, and hopefully we can get a Bell redemption, but for the moment, I'm putting it aside. And that brings us to the point where I fully bury No Fiction 2022. No Fiction 2022 was my reading goal for 2022. I would read no fiction in this year. I would only read nonfiction. I broke it from the beginning. I read some comics. I read some poetry. And now I fully bury No Fiction 2022. From here on out, I will read whatever I want, be it fiction, nonfiction, whatever. But the book, the novel, that finally did away with No Fiction 2022, well, the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. I read Death on the Nile, and I needed it. Ooh, I needed it. For those of you who don't know, Death on the Nile is an Hercule Poirot novel. Christie's Belgian or Anglo-Belgian, would it be Belgian Anglo detective? I wonder if he, that was an interesting question, if he ever got British citizenship, since he'd been in Britain for so long. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, Hercule Poirot is on holiday in Egypt. While there, he meets a number of characters, both at the hotel he's staying at and later on a steamboat ride up the Nile. Among them are Lynette Doyle, her new husband Simon Doyle, and Simon's ex-fiancée and her ex-best friend Jacqueline de Beaufort, alongside others. On the return trip, Lynette Doyle is murdered. Hercule Poirot is asked to investigate, and 2 more people are murdered in quick succession before Poirot solves the case. Death on the Nile is one of my favorite Poirot novels. Every time I read it, I love it more. Particularly this past reading when, I needed it. And this yeah, I really enjoyed it. And one thing about Christie's work is that how I've come to approach them in the last few years is as puzzles. Um, that and noticing how Christie sort of constructs the mystery, how she sort of settles on her eventual murderer. They're almost always murderers. It's just is really fascinating, as well as sort of the other subplots that arise. In this novel, there are two romantic subplots, and watching those romantic subplots develop are really interesting. Particularly one that Poirot is most active in encouraging. He is quite the matchmaker, as is Miss Marple at times. So I really enjoy Death on the Nile, and might be reading some more Agatha Christie later on this year. So I also read some comics. I read Teen Titans Book 1 by Geoff Johns. So Geoff Johns' run on the Teen Titans started in 2003 and I think lasted a couple of years. I think he was in the 40s, or might have gone from like into the 20s, and then he came back for a brief period from like 49 to 50 something. But anyway, so at this period in Titans history, the Titans had just recently disbanded after the death of Donna Troy, and Cyborg, Starfire, and Beast Boy are looking to restart the Teen Titans as more of a young superhero sort of after school program or weekend school program, like after school and weekend thing. And so they approach a number of young heroes who are a part of the superhero team Young Justice. Robin, Tim Drake, Superboy, Connor Kent, Wonder Girl, Cassie Sandsmark, Impulse, later Kid Flash, Bart Allen, and they sort of form a new Teen Titans with the older Titans being more mentors and the younger Titans being sort of after school things. And it was really good. I enjoyed it. I've read this run before, and I really enjoyed it. And revisiting it through Kindle Unlimited was amazing. I loved every moment of it. From like the first arc where Deathstroke tries to prevent the formation of this new Titans team, to the resurrection of Raven, a longtime member of the Teen Titans, and her sort of joining the team. It was incredibly fun. I enjoyed it so much. My one quibble is I didn't particularly care for the rapid change in Impulse Kid Flash's personality. He starts off as a sort of a jokester, a slacker, a gamer. He's not too interested in school. And over the course of the first arc, his personality takes a 180-degree change. He becomes far more attentive, far more academically astute. He reads the entire an entire library's worth of books in a night, and it's I didn't particularly care. I mean, like how it was handled. I mean, I guess what happens to him is a bit of it was a wake up call, and so he's becoming more serious. But at the same time, one has to wonder if Bart Allen's character wasn't changed so much for itself, but because Bart Allen's character is very much like Beast Boy's character. And really having two characters with such a similar personality, would they really gel? Would it be too much conflict? Now, one of these characters would have to go. So I wonder if that might have been part of the issue. And then today I read Volume 1 of the Krakow era X-Force, written by Benjamin Percy. This is obviously part of the new X-Men status quo, in which the mutants of Earth have, for the most part, migrated to the island of Krakow and set up an independent state. Using the flora of Krakow, the mutants have sort of forged diplomatic ties through a wonder drug trade and stuff. But as is typical, there are dangers. One of which is a secret human society or organization that sends in a number of assassination squads and other mercenaries to try to wreak havoc on Krakow. And for the most part, I enjoyed the first volume of X-Force. I think the team might be a bit not gelling, particularly given the fact that one of the members is Kid Omega, and yeah, he's entertaining, but I don't know necessarily if he really should be on the X-Men CIA. I mean, he's really not. Yeah, I would probably, if he were on a book focusing on the younger mutants, I think that would work, or something else, but not necessarily in this situation. It's felt a bit forced. Also, the role of Jean Grey, who, as a member of the Quiet Council, that I felt she probably should be leading something rather than being just a member answerable to Beast. But anyway, so I had a few quibbles, but I did enjoy X-Force Volume 1. I would have read X-Force Volume 2 today too, but I made a pizza, homemade. So for a first attempt, it turned out pretty well. I can now make yeasted doughs, which is awesome. And the pizza turned out pretty good. So yeah, and I used the gourmet cookbook by edited by Ruth Reichel. I was going to use the Cooking for Two from America's Test Kitchen, but I didn't think the pizza would yield enough, which the one from the gourmet cookbook did. So I'm quite happy with how that turned out. So yeah, what else is there? I did some, so I started on Jupiter's Legacy, and I don't know if I'm going to continue on with it. I mean, it's interesting, it's not bad per se, but I think other superhero shows are doing the same thing and doing it maybe slightly better, so I don't know. Also, I've been really interested in listening more to music the last few days rather than watching the TV show. So anyway, oh yeah, I'm forgetting something. What I'm supposed to be reading this coming week. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to be reading. I'm going to give myself some options tonight and zero in on what I'll be reading tomorrow morning. And of course, you'll find out on next weekly reads what they are. So, option 1, or the first options, are to start on and finish up my name tag TBR. And so the last book I have is Ravenna, Capital of Europe, Capital of Empire, Crucible of Europe by Judith Herren. This is a history of the city of Ravenna from probably its assumption of the capital of the Western Roman Empire throughout a certain period of the early Middle Ages. And then move from there to the Impeachers by Brenda Wineapple. This is the history of the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. I could also read A Word of Mouth, an anthology of gay American poetry edited by Timothy Liu. We just saw this earlier today on my library tour, part 4, where I discussed my poetry. I haven't read this anthology in a while, and I really want to give it another reread. I could also go for some novels. I could reread Priests of Lies by Peter McLean. This is the second book in the War for the Rose Throne series. It's the story of Thomas Piety, a young crime lord who has been pressed into the Queen's service as a Queensman. This novel sees Thomas Piety navigate the politics of the capital, as well as continuing to fend off the machinations of the Scanians, rival people who are seeking to invade his home country. And I quite enjoy it. I'm not as fond of Priests of Lies as I am of Priests of Bones. And at some point I do want to get to the third book in the series of Priest of Gallows. Or I could also go for and have another attempt at, because my last attempts at rereading this novel failed, have another go at The Swimming Pool Library by Ellen Hollinghurst. This is Hollinghurst's first novel. It's the story of a young man from a privileged background who saves the life of an older gay man, and who becomes enmeshed in this older gay man's life, and learns about his history and all of that, and kind of navigates his life and stuff. Which, I mean, it's been a while since I read it, and I really enjoyed it at the time, although my recent troubles with fiction made rereading it harder the last few times I've tried it. Hopefully, whatever issue I'm having with fiction is over. We shall see. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'll be planning on trying to get at this coming week, or some combination, some variation. We shall see how things turn out. Anyway, but yeah, I really, to return to Death on the Nile, I really needed it. And I didn't know how much I would need it. This week was pretty rough on a number of levels, and Death on the Nile was quite the comforting read throughout. So anyway, BookTube, that's all I've got for this evening. I will be back Monday with part 5 of my 2022 library tour. We'll be getting to the non-history, non-fiction, although I will be titling it the non-fiction, and then make a comment of that's not history. And then we'll be moving on after I finish the non-fiction to the headboard bookcase, which will be in 3 parts. And then I'll end next week's library tour with part 1 of the modern and contemporary fiction section. So, until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great evening, and weekend, and stay safe.